Yeah, the first thing we're going to do is talk about this Washington Post article. So, in case you didn't know, Tulsi did make it into the Washington Post, and it was a mixed bag, right? I would say I'm not going to give you my estimation. It's not that long of an article, at least not the substance of it is not that long, right? Like you can get the basic gist of it. So um, I'm going to read through it, and I want to know what your opinions are, but I'm going to tell you what my assessment of how it leans, and I also want to talk about why I actually like the article. I liked it, and I'm explaining why after we get through. So, this article is actually entitled "A Different Type of Vibe." So, my friends, I sent the article, they knew immediately that it was my quote, because like who else in politics would say something like that? I guess. But yeah, that is my quote. So, the article goes on to say, Representative Tulsi Gabbard, as she often oh, as she often does, suspected foul play after Google searches for her name spiked following the first Democratic debate in June. Her campaign sought to capitalize on the moment by buying ads on the platform, only to find Google's ads account had somehow been suspended. Her Google ad account. So, Gabbard on Thursday announced a $50 million lawsuit, which you all are familiar with by now, against Google, alleging the tech giant was discriminating against her campaign. Google, or someone at Google, didn't want Americans to hear Tulsi Gabbard's speech, so it silenced her, the complaint says. The lawsuit was one more example of how Gabbard, 38, that's super young for running for president, that's crazy, um, is not like other Democratic presidential candidates. She's a proud veteran, but one who harshly attacks the U.S. military operations. She joined Republicans in criticizing President Obama for not using the term Islamic in condemning terrorism. Actually, that's not good reporting on Amy's behalf. I think I understand with what she was trying to do, and I'm not going to say it was necessarily Amy who put that in there, because I actually had a conversation with her as she interviewed me for this article, where I said, "Look, I'll be surprised if you can even put out an objective analysis of Tulsi without your editor going back and changing some things." Um, so but that's factually inaccurate. What she said to Obama was not calling it radical Islamic extremism, because just like Christians don't want to be grouped in with Dylan Roof, Muslims don't want, they already know what connotation terrorism has in the States, and what that has translated to in our perception of Muslims, or the average American's perception of Muslims overall. After her discussions with the Muslim community, they don't want to be lumped in with the group of people, the literal 0.2%, 0.02% of Muslims. They don't want to be lumped in with them, the ones that are killing people. Why would you? I don't want to be lumped in with. I mean, not a religious Christian, but I would consider myself Christian philosophically. I wouldn't want to be lumped in with Dylan Roof. So that's what she said. And so Amy's factually wrong there, but let's continue. She has downplayed Robert Mueller's report into Russian interference in 2016 and has resisted calls to impeach Trump. She actually didn't downplay it, so that's also false, right? Or I guess you could say it's up to interpretation, but it's false if we're being factually correct. Um, because she actually said what this report shows us is that we need to try and prevent election fraud from happening, whether it's from a foreign entity or a domestic one. So if I don't understand how that's downplaying. And she also said that it's a good thing that our president was not found guilty of committing treason by participating to throw an election in his favor with the foreign government. I tend to agree with her. it would probably be a big deal. I would not be happy at all if I found out any of our presidents was working with a foreign power to overthrow the government. I wouldn't even know how to start going about having that discussion or wrapping my head around that. So I agree with her. But that's not downplaying the report. It is using the report specifically to tell people we need to move on. And if you want to, and as far as the impeachment is concerned, if you want to take Trump out, then do it at the voting booth with policy. Because this game of cat and mouse, this game of cat and mouse hasn't worked in anybody's favor except for Trump's, because he continues to come out looking like the victim, and the Democrats come out looking deranged time and time again, which is not surprising. So she's wrong. She's factually wrong there. And also, once again, just to the impeachment point, you know why Tulsi doesn't want to impeach? Well, because Tulsi, although the U.S. public school system is pure garbage, we do learn addition and subtraction. And so Tulsi is taking the basic level math class necessary to understand that literally we can't hold Trump accountable via impeachment and have any sort of outcome. Because for one, not all Democrats want to impeach. Every Republican is going to be against the impeachment. And then on top of that, you have to get through the Senate. And not once again, even in the Senate, not all Democrats want to impeach. And none of the Republicans are going to impeach. So it's pointless. It's a waste of resources. It's a waste of effort. And it's a waste. It's a distraction. And so I 100% agree with her. But as far as downplaying the Mueller report, that's inaccurate. Once again, I will give the benefit of the doubt that it's an interpretation based off of the people around her, because maybe that's how they're describing it. So I won't say it's a smear. I'll just say it's objectively inaccurate. She goes on to say her core message, Tulsi's, that the United States needs to stop trying to police the world, helped her win enough backing to qualify for the first Democratic primary debate. Gabbard also will appear in the second face-off later this week, and she has attracted supporters from the far left and the far right. An impassioned lot who see her as the only person in the field speaking truth. It's a different type of vibe, said Niko House. Sounds cool. Sounds like a pretty cool guy. One of Gabbard's most active supporters and the host of a YouTube channel on which he has questioned the official narrative on everything from Bill Cosby's downfall to the mass shooting of Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida. Tulsi has an appeal to emotion and an appeal to humanity. That's what I said. Now, some people have actually asked me and asserted, they said, well, you don't feel like they tried to make you sound like a conspiracy theorist. Actually, I understand in a vacuum why you would think that. And believe it or not, I actually told her that was okay to say. So I know people were like, what? She tried to... No, she said I questioned the official... I've questioned mostly every official narrative in the last few years, because that is exactly what this channel is designed to do. I did question the official narrative of Bill Cosby as far as how it went down in relation to Harvey Weinstein, how he was treated compared to Harvey Weinstein. Absolutely questioned that narrative. I did question the narrative of Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. Actually, I didn't even question it. The police questioned it. And I actually reported on the news, the local news, so that people could get a glimpse into what we were seeing compared to what you all were seeing. That's okay. I was perfectly fine with her saying that. She did ask for my permission to say that. And I said it was cool. So I know in a vacuum it may seem like she was trying to attack me there, but I don't think she would have used, the descriptors that I use of Tulsi in that particular instance. She could have said anything else I said in that conversation, but she chose that. And so I don't, and she did use words that I okayed. So I don't want people to think that that was her overall goal, was to disparage me. Lee Stranahan, a one-time reporter for the right-wing Breitbart website who works for the Russian state news agency Sputnik, uh, I wouldn't call Sputnik a news agency as much as a radio show platform. But anyway, he's also a fan. Lee is a friend of mine, by the way. Lee's cool people. I think she's being sincere. I don't think she's pulling her punches, says Stranahan, a former Trump supporter. Lee Stranahan is one of those very popular people on the right, formerly an ardent Trump supporter, who said, "Yo, after he listened to Tulsi speak for the first time, and she called out the intelligence community, and she was talking about election integrity, and she wouldn't play into RussiaGate." Look, he was like, "Oh nah, this is what I thought Trump was." But clearly, Tulsi is that and has shown a history of that. And he had the connections in D.C. to verify that Tulsi is who she is. So and his friends have great things to say about her. So I'm telling you, man, that unifying message of populism and standing up to the military-industrial complex, it really does reach across all the entire political spectrum and bringing everybody together, because we all understand how much control the military-industrial complex really does have over everything we want to do here domestically. And of course, we're just tired of seeing lives lost pointlessly, including American ones. So many Democrats see Gabbard as a fringe figure, which is crazy, by the way, considering that they asked her to speak at Barack Obama's convention. And she was a vice chairwoman of the DNC before. And I don't know if she's still on the Council on Foreign Relations, if her term expired, but at least she was on the Council on Foreign Relations, which you can't get done at her age at the time, because there's a different process for younger people. You couldn't get done without the approval of other members of the Council on Foreign Relations, which likely means, once again, she's not and was not a fringe until she started standing up to the establishment, which is weird that standing up to establishment makes you fringe. But to continue, it says that she is prone to unconventional stances and barely registering in the polls, making the upcoming debate potentially the last chance for her and other low-polling presidential hopefuls to make a splash. They dismiss her allegations of dark plots, and Google said her ad account was suspended automatically after being flagged for unusual activity, which would happen with any other account. Because, of course, a presidential campaign account buying ads after a presidential debate is super unusual activity. Once again, Google, YouTube, Google, whatever you want to call it, social media, big tech, making these arbitrary excuses, which we're going to talk about in a second with one of Tulsi's recent videos, about how every time one of their hiccups happens, it always happens to be against people who are anti-establishment and never against the people who are pro-establishment and who are complicit with the just monopoly that big tech has on our conversation and discourse. So, Gabbard casts her ability to appeal across the aisle as a strength. It's evident in the reception that she has on alternative outlets, including in an interview in May with Joe Rogan, a mixed martial artist, commentator, and a comedian who hosts wildly popular podcast, The Joe Rogan Experience. Rogan, who identifies as way left socially but conservative in other ways, let Gabbard talk for more than 2 hours on the show about her desire to topple the military-industrial complex. The podcast went live to Rogan's millions of followers, whom he had already primed to love Gabbard, because he endorsed her. Tulsi's my girl. I'm voting for her, I decided. I like her. Rogan said in an earlier podcast, I give up. I'm not even paying attention to anybody else. That was a dope moment, by the way. Last week, Gabbard joined the podcast, Outkicked the Coverage, on which she asserted the structure of the debates was biased against her, which of course it is. She also blasted opponent Senator Kamala D. Harris as not qualified to be commander-in-chief, because she's not. And she's got no background or experience in foreign policy, and she lacks the temperament that is necessary. I think that everybody with eyes and ears and a brain, even if you don't have a brain, like a brain isn't even required to see that about Kamala. So 100% agree with that. Still, it seems increasingly improbable that this unconventional approach will be enough for Gabbard to vault into the top tier of candidates. Um, and that's her analysis based off of what she understands about electoral politics. I would have to argue that's not true. We just saw what Trump can do by having using the same message as Tulsi when he ran, obviously having less conviction and being a little bit more inflammatory and divisive and tribalist, but he was tribalist during his election in a way where people could ignore some of the bad things that he said or did because they believed that it was for the quote unquote greater good of everybody else. Tulsi, however, has conviction, right? And she has a populist unifying message. And so these things kind of take a life of their own. And these are the same remarks they were saying about Bernie in 2016. He doesn't have a chance. He's playing from behind, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll see. Her campaign has struggled to hit 2% in the polls, so she risks not qualifying for the next debate in the falls. For months, too, she has been without a campaign manager. A vacancy her team has insisted is the result of careful deliberation, not a campaign dysfunction. And I actually appreciate her putting that in there because remember, there was an article that was insisting that Tulsi's campaign was breaking down because they fired their former campaign manager. I can say for a fact, and I'm sure they're fine with it, that it was not dysfunction. It actually shows how careful Tulsi is when it comes to putting people in control potentially of her message, of the people around her, and it also is indicative of how much or how she will govern her administration and pick those people. Right now, a bunch of anti-establishment people are around her. That is a great thing. That is something a lot of us wish Bernie would do, is stop putting establishment voices or former establishment voices around him to take a little bit more of an unorthodox approach in some of your staff. Tulsi has done that. And trust me when I say, this is from the campaign directly, they'll get a campaign manager when they feel like, one, it's necessary. Right now, I can say that it's not necessary. But if depending on how well this debate goes, it may be necessary. But it will be somebody they can trust. The last person they could not trust, period. So I appreciate her actually clarifying and actually giving the campaign's quote on that, rather than just leaning on the article that said that the campaign was dysfunctional and that's why they fired the campaign manager. Her family has pitched in heavily. Her sister, Vrindavan, shout out to Davin, out here making a ruckus on Twitter, is a constant presence on the campaign trail, pinch hitting on everything from travel logistics to social media posts, occasionally reminding Gabbard to eat between events. That is actually a true statement. Gabbard's husband, Abraham, shout out to Abe, awesome guy, loves his wife so much. Actually, we were talking about what if Tulsi wins and he's the first husband, and he's like, I don't know if I'll be able to stop being the cameraman. We were joking about that while we were covering one of her events. He was dead serious about that too, by the way. But so shout out to Abe. And he is the campaign's videographer, which is very thrifty on behalf of Tulsi because video production and marketing is extremely expensive. So she saves hundreds of thousands of dollars by having her husband be the videographer. And he does a fantastic job. Gabbard's iconoclastic message draws vocal opponents as well. Among other things, she's been dogged by protesters who say she's too close to India's Hindu nationalists and the country's prime minister. Narendra Modi. I feel like she spelled his name wrong. But her most provocative move, though, came in 2017 when she met secretly with Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. She has since minimized reports that he used chemical weapons against his people. She minimized the reports because the OPW leaked a document that said that he didn't do that. So that's why those reports were minimized. So, yeah. Democrats and Republicans distanced themselves from her trip, and she has spent the ensuing years defending it. Uh, I do want to say that once again, she didn't call her an aside toady. So that's something that I appreciate. That is factually true. Democrats and Republicans have been trying to separate herself from the trip. She technically did minimize the chemical attacks, which is why a lot of people like her, by the way, because she called for legitimate investigations and said, well, we'll continue to be a little bit skeptical because I know our history. And guess what? Tulsi was right in exercising that skepticism. Her and Rand Paul both were skeptical of the alleged attacks. So, but I do appreciate her not trying to say like, oh, she met with Assad and it was for no reason, and you know, she just ignored evidence that mounted that said he did it. And he's a war criminal. Like, she didn't do all that, and so I actually appreciate that. If it's not obvious why a lesser-known congresswoman, when ostracized by her own party, would run for president, Gabbard traces her decision to a text message that went out in January across her home state. The ballistic missile threat inbound to Hawaii seek legitimate attention. And you all know that story, so I'm not going to go into all of it. But it says the scare deeply affected her. It was a major turning point, and she says she has to be in a position where she feels that she can do something about this. Born in American Samoa, Gabbard spent most of her childhood in Hawaii, with the fourth of 5 siblings, and the shyest, by her recollection, is true. Her siblings are not shy, as you've met V. So. In a socially conservative household at the age of 21, she became the youngest person ever elected to the state's legislature. Shortly afterward, she joined the Hawaii Army National Guard, and they go through that story as well. I'm not going to go into that. In the middle of the campaign, she spoke briefly at the Democratic National Convention to open up her speech with a hearty aloha. The crowd loved her. She was telegenic Iraq war veteran who would go on to defeat her Republican opponent in 2012. With 81% of the vote, becoming the first Hindu. And so she actually goes through and breaks down her past. You know, that's basically the gist of it. I don't want to go into all the stuff that you already know about. But so my assessment of that article is, in all honesty, because I was ready to be pissed when I first read it. Because it doesn't matter if she asked me a bunch of questions. This is still the Washington Post. And, you know, Amy was very nice and was very sweet about Tulsi on the phone when she talked to me. You know, very objective on the phone, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's how it's going to translate in the article. She could have just been trying to butter me up. So the truth is, though, this is what actual journalism for. I'm not saying some things she did get factually off or incorrect, but that's, you know, her interpretation as a journalist. She's free to make those interpretations based off of her knowledge. But she talked about the good things about her, what people loved about her, got opinions from people on the left and people on the right, discussed how she's overcome odds to win elections that didn't favor her in the past. She talked about things that we love as far as the military-industrial complex and what her critics are saying about her. So even though she had some things that Tulsi supporters like myself would initially take a step back and say, what the hell? Why are you even bringing this up? Well, I don't want a journalist to just blindly praise any politician. I don't want like any major media conglomerate just blindly praising any politician. What I wanted and what we often want, Nina Turner discussed this when she was on Twitter talking about how that Mimi Rocha was on MSNBC, but they couldn't have to attack Bernie, but they couldn't bring somebody on to challenge her. We're not saying don't bring on Mimi Rocha. What we're saying is if you're going to bring on Mimi Rocha, then make sure you have someone that can speak up for Bernie so that people are hearing all sides. So yeah, I'm okay with you talking about what people have to say about her negatively, and then mentioning what people love about her, and then letting the people do their research, and then drawing the conclusion based off of an objective analysis. I'm okay with that. So I'm actually appreciative of the amount of detail she went in about Tulsi's life. I'm appreciative of her getting answers from both the left and the right about why we like Tulsi, talking about that unifying appeal that she has. And I appreciate the fact that she highlighted the great parts about her campaign, clarified things that were previously being said about her campaign that were untrue, and she gave Tulsi fair coverage in a very popular publication from an objective standpoint. I don't want Amy to love her, okay? Because if she has the propensity to display that type of love for Tulsi as a journalist for the Washington Post, then that she can easily display that type of love for some blind love for somebody else as a journalist for the Washington Post, which also should not be okay. So I wish more journalists in her position will use their platform to do the same thing for people like Tulsi and Bernie more often. So that's my assessment of that. Hey, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification button to get all of our notifications if you like that episode of Mikasa Sukasa. You can also help continue to grow our show by donating to our Patreon and helping us hit our goal of 500 patrons. But remember, more than anything else, find your balance. Peace.